So if God made everything good, why is there so much suffering in the world? We saw that in the creation, everything God made was good, and yet the world today obviously is not good, and we see a lot of suffering, and we can question God's goodness when we see these things. Now, from an atheistic perspective, if there is no God, there's no reason for suffering. There's no rhyme or reason for anything. In fact, Richard Dawkins, one of the most famous atheists in the world, says that the universe is exactly as we would expect it to see, that if at the end there is no good, no evil, just blind, pitiless indifference. And so that is in contrast with the Bible that gives us an explanation and a reason for why evil exists. And so when God made everything good, He created the Garden of Eden, and He put the first man, Adam, in the garden. He breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and He gave Adam everything that he wanted in the garden except one thing. He said, "Do not eat from the tree of knowledge and good and evil, for the day you eat of it, you will surely die." God warned him. He had freedom of the entire garden, but that one tree he couldn't eat of. And God didn't surprise him. God told him exactly what the consequences of his disobedience would be. And then God created Eve, who was the perfect helper for Adam. And one day it says in Genesis chapter 3, it says, "The serpent was more crafty than any other beast of the field that the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, 'Did God actually say you shall not eat from any tree of the garden?' And the woman said to the serpent, 'We may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden. But God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it, lest you die.' But the serpent said to the woman, 'You will not surely die.'" Now here we have the contrast between God's good command and the serpent saying the exact opposite. "You will not surely die." What did God say? You will die. Who will the woman believe? In verse 5 it says, "For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." And so the serpent's temptation was very crafty. He's saying God is holding back on you. God doesn't want you to experience the fullness of life. But he was lying. Verse 6, "So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food and that it was a delight to the eyes and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and she ate. And she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loincloths." And so their innocence at that moment was lost. Their relationship with God was lost. It was broken. And all of creation was impacted by their fall, by their disobedience. And so God finds them, not like he had to look for them. God knew where they were. And they ended up doing what all human beings did. Adam said it was the woman's fault. The woman said it was the serpent's fault. They wanted to blame other people for their own sin. And so God gave them consequences for that sin. Starting with the serpent, he said that the serpent would crawl on his belly like we see snakes today. And in verse 15, he says, this is a very important verse. It says, "I will put enmity," that means hatred, "between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel." And this is called basically an advance gospel message, because even though they had sinned, God already had a plan in place for the salvation of humanity, of those who would follow him and believe in him and have faith. And so he's telling the serpent, who was basically Satan, that there would be hatred between the seed of the serpent, which is basically Satan and his people, and then the seed of the woman, who would one day ultimately be Jesus. And that the heel of the offspring of the woman would be struck, but the head of the serpent would be struck. One would be a non-mortal injury because Jesus died and he rose from the dead, and one would be the ultimate defeat of Satan. That was already written right into the very beginning. But then sin entered the world, and that impacted all of creation. In fact, Romans chapter 8, verse 18 says, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed in us. For the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation has been groaning together in the pains of childbirth until now. And so we see not only the reason for the fall and the reason for sin and suffering in the world, we see that God has an answer and that all of creation will be redeemed, including the children of God.